Broadcasting from Cincinnati, you're listening to the Ringside Reporter Podcast. All the news from the world of right here.
Well, I'm talking to you the way I want to talk to you.
Now, here's your host, Eric Lorda.
All right, this is a Ringside Reporter Live. This is Maestro. I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Joe Habib. Somebody was trying to get an early start in calling us, but we're not just going to take calls just yet. This is Maestro, and I am going to do my best job today to fill in for Mr. Eric Lorda, my brother from Ringside Reporter Live, who is not here today, but we will continue the show, and you can catch Joe and Eric, the dynamic duo, back at it again next week, Sunday, right here at this time for the regularly scheduled Ringside Reporter Live. But Joe, let's get right into it. There's a big, huge fight out in Sheffield Saturday night. It was a huge fight. I know you were really looking forward to it. I know that Eric was looking forward to it. And I'm talking about Cecilia Brais trying to become unified champion of the world. Why don't we kick it off with that fight, Joe? Fight of the weekend, your favorite. I know Eric's favorite. It's going to be Cecilia Brais, Terry Harper. Get us started, Joe. Go for it.
Yeah, I was amazed at the commentary, particularly Sonny Edwards, thinking that was a clear win for Terry Harper. Terry Harper, it was clear she was trying to back up and suck Brais into traps. She was trying to play the counterpunch role. She was trying to set the trap and have Cecilia Brais take the bait, but Cecilia Brais would not take the bait. She would step in with the jab, and then she would kind of take that half step back, not all the way back, but just enough where she can kind of get out of harm's way, but just far enough where she could reset quicker. So she didn't take herself too far out of range. So she would throw the jab. She would throw the straight shots down the pike. And what Terry Harper was used to is someone like Jessica McCaskill, who's going to go all the way in, where she can kind of catch her leaning in, overly aggressive, overextending herself, where Brais didn't do that, And Jonathan Banks gave her great instructions in the corner, said, hey, you know what? Just throw the jab and take the half step back. Don't go all the way in. Whereas, McCaskill did something entirely different, and you saw how different that fight was. You saw how different that fight was when she fought her. So I just think that Terry Harper didn't make the adjustment once she found out that Brais was not going to take the bait, was not going to go all the way in, was not going to get sucked into her counter punches. She needed to become more aggressive, and she didn't do that. And she was laying back, and she continued to do the same thing over and over again by stepping back, trying to circle, trying to set the trap, and it didn't work. Once she realized the trap didn't work, she didn't do anything different, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I just think that a lot of the shots she did throw when she was being offensive, they weren't hitting Brais flush. Brais was catching a lot of them. A lot of them were grazing, and I'm not saying either woman lit the world on fire with activity, but again, the shots that landed clean, the ones that kind of snapped the head back, were from Brais. I mean, she would land a sharp right hand every now and then. Her jab was actually snapping Harper's head back. Where Harper's hook was when it landed, it was more of a grazing shot.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. And a lot of the narrative.
When I said McCaskill, I meant to say, who was the other girl? Oh shit! It wasn't McCaskill. That was
Terry Harper. You're talking about Alicia.
Yeah. No, the hell is her name? I interviewed her too. I got the name mixed up. She was the one that kept getting sucked into the counter punches. I'm trying to remember her name.
Well, you remember
she
that,
Marissa Shields too. Hannah Rankin was the one. Hannah Rankin. I interviewed her too. I apologize. I got her mixed up with McCaskill because McCaskill was the one that was walking into the Chantel Cameron counter punches, but it was the same thing. So
and of course, McCaskill is the fighter that Cecilia Brais fought and kind of didn't look all that impressive against. Look, Cecilia Brais has more experience fighting in these higher weight classes. She's the more experienced fighter. She went in there, I believe, at the age of 42. Didn't look like a 42-year-old. Very crafty. Great use of the jab. I like the head movement. I like the fact that when she got inside to the mid-range and the short range, she, utilized good head movement and block a lot of those punches. That, by the way, Sonny Edwards and some of the commentating crew was giving Harper credit for. I didn't see all of those punches landing like they did. Granted, I was watching it on television. They were there in the ringside position, but the rise in weight was supposed to help Terry Harper. I don't really know if it has. I think 150. This was contested at 154, right? I think
154.
High for Terry Harper, somebody who had grown accustomed to using kind of her size and her reach to her advantage, but wasn't able really to deal with an opponent that would essentially stand still when there wasn't much punching taking place. Brais was very good at, in those low moments, popping her with a jab.
She was touching her.
Touching her with a jab, right?
Yeah.
It didn't have to be hurting, but definitely had to be forcing her to kind of reset and forcing her to think in there. I don't know. I didn't think it was a robbery. I didn't think that she was robbed by the draw. I saw a fight that, honestly, Cecilia Brais could have won a close decision So I wasn't outraged by the scorecard itself. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I had Brais winning 6 rounds to 4, so I had her winning by 2 points. And to piggyback off what you said about the weight, Harper said, you know what, maybe I may need to go back down to I may need to go down to 147, right? Because she went like, I think, from 135
all the way to one. She got that standing knockout kind of against Bob.
But then she had like 1 or 2 fights at 135, and then from 135 she went right to 154, and I think that was against Hannah Rakin. She fought for the for her title, or I think it was vacant, or I think Hannah Rakin may have been the champion. I'm trying to remember, but she fought Hannah Rakin for the title, and it was just a whole different type of fight,
100%. So this was obviously on the undercard of the main event spectacle that saw Nottingham's Lee Wood defend his WBA 126-pound championship of the world against none other than Josh, the Leeds Warrior Warrington. Sheffield is very close to Leeds. Both fighters seem to have a good amount of crowd support. Going into this fight, I was expecting Lee Wood to get the win. What I was not expecting, though, Joe, was for Josh Warrington to have so much success. And it almost appears as if, he kind of had to pull out that kind of game-winning home run at the end there. Entered the 9th inning, down on the scorecards. In this case, obviously, it wasn't the 9th inning, but, my baseball analogy here is falling flat. The fact is he had to come from behind and score that knockout on my cards. It was a brutal stoppage. You got to wonder if the move to 130 after this fight is going to help Lee Wood. Josh Warrington was doing a pretty good job at kind of fighting at levels, attacking the body, then attacking the head. Level changes were a big part of his game, but I was not expecting him to cause that much trouble for Lee Wood. Lee Wood, obviously, with that concussive knockout power, we've seen him do it before against Mike Conlon and others. He did it again last night in Sheffield. What were your thoughts, Joe? Go for it.
Speaking about the levels, he did a great job at that by getting low. And when you get low like that, we talked about this earlier, he would get low, and he had a very tight, strong defensive construct. He had a tight defense for this fight, right? More so than we were used to seeing him. He was a little bit more cerebral in this fight, a little bit, I'm not going to say methodical, because he was aggressive as hell, but there was a method to his madness, right? So he when he got down low like that, he had Lee Wood put him in a position where he had to guess what's coming out at me, that hook to that left hook to the body or the left hook to the head, because he was having success landing body and head shots. And like I said, the big problem was guessing where is he gonna, when he springs up out of that crouch from that low posture, right? Changing levels. When he springs up, is he gonna stay down there and shoot the body shot, or is he gonna spring up and hit me to the head, or is he gonna throw the 45 right up the middle, right? So he had Lee Wood guessing a little bit about what was coming out at him, and he was picking off a lot of Lee Wood's shots early on. And it's ironic that getting low is what gave him the success, in my opinion. And also the shots were a little tighter than normal. They weren't as wide, which I thought going in, he would be the guy opening up wide and Lee would get him straight down the middle. But what happened in that 7th round is what I kind of thought was going to happen early on, where he would wouldn't fight using levels as much and stand straighter up, because when he was on the ropes, he kind of stood straighter up. He wasn't down low, and he gave Lee Wood that this his torso, and he opened up his guard just enough. He became complacent for that one short period of time, and that's where Lee Wood kind of threaded the needle and landed the perfect shot and just followed up. It was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. It was such explosive, precise shot, and he stood him up, and he was out on his feet. But that one lapse of going away from the game plan, of having that tight defense and getting low, what did he do? He relaxed for that 1 second, stood straight up, and he gave Lee Wood a bigger target to shoot at, and Lee Wood hit him like a guided missile. It was beautiful.
He 100% did, and it happens at times in boxing where what you're doing is working so well,
Complacent.
That you become complacent. And sometimes people give you things, by essentially setting a trap for you later on. I heard Billy Joe Saunders talking about this past week, Joe, in an interview he did with Simon Jordan, where essentially he was explaining how Canelo had been essentially giving him openings that he could exploit so that he could later utilize that and capitalize it and earn the eventual knockout. I'm not saying that that's what happened between these two, but what I did notice is that he was having so much success doing what he was doing that, to your point too, Joe, he kind of became complacent there.
Well, not only that, it's like when your opponent allows you to do something for a little while because he wants you to keep doing it. So later, he wants you to get comfortable doing what you're doing, getting in that pattern, that rhythm. And then what happens is he's saying to himself, I could do this, but I'm not going to do it right now. I want him to keep doing it and let him get comfortable. And then when I do it, I'm going to give him that element of surprise. So, you allow your opponent to maybe dip to that side, and he keeps doing it, right? But you don't do anything right away. Like you may just touch him here or there, whatever. But then that one time when he does it, when you want to actually capitalize on it, then you land the big shot. Because if you stop making him pay for doing it, he's going to stop doing it. You want him to keep doing it, and you want him to keep doing it more and more. And later in the fight, after he's expended a lot of energy doing it, you're going to be more effective when you make him pay for it at that time. And I don't know if I'm not going to say that's what Lee Wood was doing, but yeah, I mean, when you do fight out of that tight low construct, out of that crouch, like what Rocky Marciano used to do, he used to fight out of the crouch. He used to spring out of the couch. When you're in that crouch, you're expending a lot of energy because you have to tense up your muscles. It's easier to stand up straighter. You're more relaxed, right?
Mike Tyson is another example, a little bit more recent. I mean, that kind of crouch style behind the high guard.
When you crouch, you have to use a lot of your lower body muscles to tense and hold yourself there, and you expend a lot of energy. So who knows? Maybe Warrington was getting a little tired, and when you get tired, what happens? You become more relaxed. You get in more relaxed postures, dropping your hands, standing straight up, not tucking your chin, because again, all those motions and positions cause you to use more energy than probably you don't want to use on a consistent basis throughout the whole course of the fight. And maybe at that time, he just got tired. And not only that, he may have looked at Wood and said, I got him. This guy's fading. Because he looked a little bit ragged in there at that point. He looked like he was on the verge of getting stopped.
I mean,
so then that adds to the complacency, right? So when you start seeing your opponent in the state that Lee Wood was in, you're saying to yourself, it's only a matter of time. And that's when you start getting relaxed. And when you start getting relaxed mentally, subconsciously, you're getting relaxed physically.
Now,
you know
Ken Davidson was working the cut Saturday, wasn't he?
He did a beautiful job.
I
yes.
mean, I don't know about his game planning, but his cut man work was on Saturday night.
Absolutely.
I mean, and to your point, when you finish a round and you're Lee Wood, and then Josh Warrington's looking at you and saying, "Wow, that's a lot of swelling. You know, that's a lot of damage that I'm inflicting on you." It's got to be a benefit to his confidence, but obviously, with that confidence, also must come a certain measure of caution in that you got to protect yourself at all times. Quick question for you, Joe, and also for the chat. This was a decent night for DAZN. We're going to get into the other DAZN card in a moment. But was this enough for you to say, yeah, $225, I'm going to re-up?
If I'm going to look at bang for buck and value for dollar, I said this earlier and I'll say it again. ESPN Plus kicking the shit out of both PBC and DAZN. So to answer your question, no, because here's the thing. These last couple months, like maybe the last quarter of the year, they've gotten better. These are better fights than they were in the beginning and in the middle. But let's not forget, we're paying for a whole year of fights. So if we have a good card here and a good card there, those are sporadic shows. That doesn't justify the whole year of paying $225. And I'm gonna name drop here, Brais. I love you, but you're holding the pom poms high and heavy for DAZN. And you know what? If I was paying half price like you are, you pay $99 a year. Well, you're paying almost half less than us. You're only paying half of what we pay. Of course, I'm not going to be angry, right? And you don't have to pay paper. What was the fight that you guys got? We had to pay pay-per-view.
Oh, they had Canelo Charlo included.
Yeah, you had Canelo Charlo for free. You had Canelo Charlo for free. We had to pay fucking $85 for it. Of course, you're gonna like DAZN. If I had your deal, I wouldn't be angry either. But let's keep things in context here, man.
No, I agree.
I agree.
I'm gonna go to a couple comments here. Olaf the Almighty. I bought DAZN for 1 month. This has been the best DAZN month of the year. You have to pick and choose with DAZN based on the calendar. Paying for the whole year isn't worth it. My guess is he's from the United States, like we are. Pimps My Sniper says Eddie's had a great yearly schedule, well worth the yearly sub. I'm guessing
where are you from? Where do you live?
Drop your cities, drop your countries in the chat because we would like to get to know you a little bit. Let us know where you're from.
Another UK person.
Right?
Again, you're paying $99. You're paying $10 a month, bro. We're paying double what you're paying.
Jab, jab, grab, 1, 2, 3. This must be an Anthony Joshua fan. He says, last time I paid was when it was 99 pence. So not even a full pound. Aaron Daly says, I think it's worth it. Regular fights and well-matched cards, but I'm British and know the fighters you guys may not. No.
You're paying half of what we're paying. You're paying half of what we're paying.
Look, you're talking, Aaron Daly, with all due respect, brother, to two guys that watch cockroaches and pigeons fight. I watch everything. And matter of fact, I have a system that gives me access to all of the UK channels. I'm not going to say exactly what that system is, but when the fight isn't on live here in the United States and it's a Wasserman show, or if it's a show out in Japan, I always figure out a way to watch it. But I do that even though I pay $225 a year. And I'll be honest with you, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but what I will say is I'm not impressed by Haney versus Prograis being on DAZN, Joe, because they're putting it on DAZN pay-per-view. Now, again, maybe you guys in the UK are going to get that included in your bundle, but we're not. And the other thing that a lot of people from the UK may not realize is that when they're charging you, and I'll use next weekend's Misfits card, not that I'm very into Misfits, I'm not, but I'm just using this as an illustrative example. They'll charge you guys a third of what they charge us for that card. They're charging about $20, I believe, for that in the UK. For us, they're charging $55. Now, there's no real reason for that. They're not having to work with a satellite operator, with a cable operator, with some kind of third-party distributor. They're just fleecing the U.S. fight fans. It is what it is. I'm sorry. Joe, go for it.
The problem is because they're seeing us pay $85 for the Showtime pay-per-views, so they'll charge us $55, thinking we're getting a bargain. But it's still not a bargain when you look at the type of fight. Like you can sit there and complain all you want about Tank versus Hector Garcia being on pay-per-view, and you're well within your rights to do that, and you're justified to do that. But the problem is $55 for a misfit fight. I mean, come on, bro. Like, when you look at the level of fighter versus these guys like KSI. I don't know. Does he belong on pay-per-view? Is it
in the US? I mean, let's be serious, guys. And
Tommy Fury and KSI are British fighters. You guys should pay that. Why do we have to pay it? They give you guys Canelo, Charlo for free. They can't give us friggin' KSI versus Tommy Fury for free?
100%.
What the fuck?
No, I mean, it makes no sense. And you know what the difference with that card and because I know a lot of people like to compare Fury and Ngannou to that card, and we'll get to the second DAZN card in a moment. I just want to make this point. That undercard of Fury and Ngannou is stacked with heavyweight fights. I don't know if you guys have seen the undercard, but it's stacked with heavyweight fights. These Misfit shows on DAZN, they're not stacked with any. I mean, they're putting a world jiu-jitsu champion, I believe, on the undercard. Guys, don't let me get into jiu-jitsu. Don't make me get it. Don't make me get into jiu-jitsu because that's not gonna end very well for all of the jiu-jitsu fans out here. They like to frolic and roll around with their friends in dojos from a position where they're lying on their back. I don't know how many men like to be lying on their back, Joe, but that's like a last resort position. And I saw an interesting thing on it that was quite funny where a karate guy entered a tournament. I know I shared it to you, but anyways, here we go. So let's talk about it. Joe Smith Jr. went out to the Cosmopolitan Saturday night. Beautiful hotel and casino, by the way, in Las Vegas on the Strip. They've got a hall or a ballroom down there that they use to host fights. He took on former world champion in his own right. This was a battle of former world champions, Joe Smith Jr. being the former light heavyweight world champion, WBO, versus Gilberto Zurdo, which means Southpaw Ramirez, the former 168-pound WBO champion in a cruiserweight fight. Going into this fight, there are questions about both fighters, Joe. Zurdo obviously got schooled and outclassed by Bivol. He couldn't seem to get going. He seemed like he was in quicksand the whole time in that fight, or was wearing cement blocks around his feet. And obviously, Joe Smith Jr. in a fight that I attended at Madison Square Garden got comprehensively outboxed, schooled, and brutally stopped by Artur Beterbiev. So you had a guy coming off a shutout versus a guy coming off a brutal stoppage. They took each other on last night. I gotta just, before I throw it to you, Joe, this was like the old Zurdo again. This was a Zurdo that could move laterally from left to right. This was a Zurdo that could punch effectively in combination to the head and to the body. This was a Zurdo that could force his opponent to the rope, but it was also a Zurdo who could fight going backwards and off the ropes with great head movement and great footwork. Look, I don't want to make excuses for Zurdo here, but it does seem like the move up to 200 pounds has improved him somewhat. And I got to really wonder now, how much of that issue with Bivol was just the weight? I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't seem like he could move effectively in his last fight at light heavyweight. He moves up to cruiserweight, and all of a sudden we're seeing a guy who, dare I say, is like shifting between being a slick southpaw boxer and a pressure fighter. Honestly, it was beautiful boxing to watch. I think from Zurdo. Joe, what were your thoughts? Go for it.
Well, when you don't have to worry about running out of gas because you're depleted at the weight, then you can fight at you can move more. You can fight moving without being concerned about gassing out later in the fight. This is like you have two vehicles, right? They get a lot of miles to the gallon, right? Two good cars, right? Reliable cars. But one car has all the options. They're fully loaded. And the other car is the base model, right? Zurdo's the fully loaded guy. He's the guy that has more options, right? And Smith is a solid guy. He's got the gas tank. He's got the reliability. He's still a good vehicle, but he's not the same vehicle as that model with all the options. You hit the nail right on the head. When you got a guy that is effective and dangerous going forward as well as going backward, and the other guy is just effective going forward, then obviously that guy with the more options, right, has more ways to win. He's got more weapons. He was using movement early on, right? There were times towards the end of the fight where he stood his ground a little bit and Joe Smith had some success. But when there was space between the two, he was picking them apart from the outside. Joe Smith had the high guard. He's coming forward. But Zurdo could just lace him right down the pike, man. He couldn't miss him with that left hand early on, right? First 5 or 6 rounds, he was just picking him apart from the outside. And then when Joe Smith did get close, Zurdo's a very capable fighter. Even though he's tall and long, he's a capable fighter on the inside as well. So once again, I was shocked at how one-sided that Bivol fight was because I looked at Zurdo and I said to myself, this is a guy who can do a lot of things. This is going to be difficult for Bivol because of the versatility that Zurdo brings to the table. But I did see a guy in that fight who was very flat as opposed to this guy who was much more energetic. Now, of course, you can say different opponents. I get that. But this type of opponent does bring a different set of challenges because this is a guy who brings volume. He brings pressure. He brings a fast pace. He makes you work. And he moved more in this fight than I've ever seen him move. But it was good movement, subtle movement, just enough to get himself out of range. We talk about subtle movement all the time, and it's something that a fighter has to have instinctively, knowing where you are in the ring, knowing just how far to move out, where you're not too far out of range, so you don't have to reset and use up too much of the ring and too much time to get back in that offensive position. When you can transition quick like that, which Zurdo can do, and which he did display in this fight, that gives you a whole different skill set. Joe Smith doesn't have that quick transition, right? He has one gear and he has one way to fight. Now it's a good gear. It's a good way to fight. But when you have another guy who could offset that and do more things, then you're going to have a problem. I thought this was like a 7-3 type fight. I do think Joe Smith landed some good shots in round 7 and 8. I think he buzzed him. I think round 7, it was a big shot that landed, buzzed him, hurt him. And then 8th, he had another good round. Round 4, he had some good moments. But Zurdo came back in the 10th and he closed the show. So I like what I saw with Zurdo. I mean, this could be his new home. If he can bring this energy moving forward against everyone, then he's going to be a tough out for anyone. Now, will he beat a guy like Obatai? No. I don't know. Probably not. I mean, you'd have to favor Obatai in that one because this is a guy who's very, very dangerous. He can punch. But I'll tell you this, he'll give him a run for his money, right? I think he'll do a lot better than Thompson did. I'll tell you that.
We'll do a lot better than Thompson did. The Thompson fight was one of the most one-sided mismatches I've seen at the championship level in quite some time. He just didn't look like he even belonged to be in that ring with Jai Opetaia. What I will say about Zurdo is this. He does manage the distance very well, Joe, which is what you were alluding to. He knows that at long range you can drop your hands to kind of bait in your opponent, but he knew that at mid to short range he needed to keep his gloves high and really use a lot of head movement. That was impressive to me. And people say, "Oh, Maestro, Joe Smith is slow." I get it. He's a lot slower than Bivol, and maybe a lot of what we were seeing in improvement has to do with the fact that he was facing much less dynamic, much slower guy. But like Joe said, that challenge of Joe Smith presented its own set of challenges. Joe Smith does hit quite hard. However, his attack last night was very, very predictable, Joe. I felt he kind of just wanted to move forward linear, straight line, and land a powerful right hand, which he only was able to really do constructively 2, maybe 3 times
Just
the
in
whole
spots.
fight.
Just
So
in rare spots.
as for Zurdo, I would avoid Jaya Pataya. The Chris Billam Smith fight would probably be a little bit better for him.
He could beat Billam Smith, I think.
Yeah, I think he could probably beat Billam Smith, who's obviously claimed the fame as winning that fight. Horrible,
I think he beat a Coley too. I would pick him against everyone except for Obitaya, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you think he'd beat Badu Jack if Badu Jack stays at welterweight?
He says
welterweight. Sorry,
he's saying he wants to move up to Bridgerweight. He vacated his WBC Cruiserweight title, so
well, there you go.
I don't even know if he's going to be in the picture any much longer.
Well, that's a good point. It's a move that I don't really understand unless he's looking at it and saying, "Look, I'm just effective against guys that are bigger and slower." Which, you do have guys that like to spar bigger guys because they like sparring slower guys. The other fighter there is obviously the French-based Armenian Artem Gulamirian, who we haven't seen much of on TV over here in the U.S. But if you've got that international feed, you guys would have seen him. But let's go to the super chat. Alexander Wilson, thank you so much for the super chat, brother. I really appreciate it, and I know Joe does. Eric as well. Zurdo was crouching and giving up his height against Bivol, which I thought was a bad tactic. He didn't do that against Smith. Yeah, I mean, look, he did, I felt, fight at levels at certain times, but he was dynamic with his attack. He wasn't just fighting one way. Like I said earlier, he was fighting at levels. He'd crouch to go to the body, but he'd also go upstairs, even off of the crouch. He'd move his head a lot. He was circling left and circling right. I mean, a lot of the times when you're fighting a southpaw, when a southpaw is fighting an orthodox fighter, they like to teach to go, away from the right hand. But what Zurdo was doing was going to both sides, to the left and to the right, which I thought was good, while being defensively responsible, of course. Any other comments, Joe, before we I guess we can open up the lines, right?
Yeah, I'm Fight Fan TV Live. Shout out to Danny. He said Richard Riakporhe would beat Zurdo. He may be right there. Richard Riakporhe is another tough guy. I forgot about him. Yeah, that would be a tough fight for Zurdo. But I think Zurdo's a player. I think I don't think anyone beats Obitaya, but he's going to be the next Usyk down there at cruiserweight. I think he's going to be the man when all the dust is cleared eventually. But yeah, I think other than him, though, I think Riakporhe, yeah, and Zurdo, they'll be the other two players in my opinion.
There you go. Lines are open. Let's get on Robbie first. Robbie, are you there? Hello, Robbie. Robbie, hello, Robbie. All right, I don't hear Robbie, but we do have Papa Chubby Chubby. Papa Chubby Chubby, what's good, brother? You're on live. Papa Chubby Chubby. Going once, going twice. And that's it. So look, if you want to call in, the number's on the screen. It's 718-618-4284. If you'd like to also join us using your link in YouTube, you can do that as well. We've got Danny Glover on here with us. Danny Glover, what's good, brother? Go for it.
What's up, Danny?
Yeah, man. How's it going, Joe and Maestro? Big up, shout outs every time.
100%, brother. Good to
Oh,
see you.
man. Yeah, you too, man. But yeah, no, I was saying, yeah, I think Richie Riakpo beats Jai Patai, and we have to take into account also that remember this was at 191, so these guys are like a good 9 pounds heavier than what Zerdo was weighing in at. Yes, we know that Zerdo can definitely make 200 pounds because we've seen on next day weigh-ins he's weighed 200 pounds even when he was at 175. But if he weighs in at 200 pounds, would that make him sluggish? Because when we've seen him come in the ring 200 plus, his thing is about volume and overwhelming guys, but his feet have never been that good, and that's what caught him out against Bivol, and that's what caught out Canelo against Bivol because they're both flat-footed fighters. So even with the Bivol fight, when you're talking about Bivol made Joe Smith Jr. look slow, he punched him to smithereens. Yes, Joe Smith Jr. caught Bivol in round 9 or 10, which proper wobbled him. But apart from that one round, Bivol had his way with him because he's very fleet-footed. He's got that Ryu and Ken type martial arts type style with his feet. So he's able to make guys like Zerdo and Canelo look very ponderous. So Joe Smith was a good first fight, I would say, for someone like Zerdo at this old school cruiserweight, because the old school cruiserweight was 190 pounds back when like Johnny Nelson was like running the show. But with 200 pounds, with Lawrence Okoli, yes, he's very ugly, but when he sticks out that long stiff arm and then tries to draw you in for the backhand, I don't know how Zerdo will be able to deal with that because he'd be at a height deficit as well. He'd be like 2 inches. No, he'd be 4 inches shorter. How tall is Zerdo?
He's 6'3",
Three.
and Okoli's 6'5", isn't he?
Yeah, so it'd be at a height deficit, reach deficit.
2 inches, 2 inches, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be an interesting dynamic where at 175 he was like the big tall guy, kind of like how Benavidez is that at 168. So when you're dealing with guys who are 6'5", like Richie Riakpo and Lawrence Okoli, that's going to be a different dynamic.
The thing is with Okoli, though, Danny, right now, nobody has to fight him. I mean, he doesn't have a belt.
Zerdo
He's
is
a 6'5" guy with an ugly style that's involved in a lot of ugly fights. Like, if I'm managing a cruiserweight, I'm keeping him away from Lawrence Okoli like the plague. You gain nothing from putting him in with Lawrence Okoli.
Okoli's the Who Needs Him club.
100%. Go for it, Joe.
Here's one thing, Danny, but with Zerdo, he can fight better than I think Riakpo and definitely Okoli on the inside. He's a pretty decent inside fighter for a tall, lanky guy. Whereas those guys don't have an inside game. No,
Riakpo does have an inside game. Okoli has zero inside game.
You think Riakpo does got a better one than Zerdo? Or?
No, not a better one, but he is effective with uppercuts and body shots. He has taken guys out with body shots on numerous occasions, like Dion Juma, and even the last guy I think he fought. So he is known for heavy body shots. Riakpo, but
give me your top 5 cruiserweights, Danny. Not to cut you off. I'm just curious.
Ooh,
no. Top 5: Jai Pattaya, number 1.
I mean, he's still officially a cruiserweight.
Now, see what you're doing now? You got to think after number 1. The next 4 is tough, right?
It might be Maris Brais, to be honest with you. I mean, the only one that beat him is Jai Pattaya, and we see how good he is.
Yeah, Brais was running the show because what it is, we initially a lot of people will say Badu Jack because of name brand, but at cruiserweight and his age, he got fortunate. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's a bridgerweight, and he got fortunate, fighting another old man in what's his name? Macabu. Like Macabu, yeah. On Box Rec or whatever his stats might say 34, but we can tell he's like 40 years old. So after Jai Pattaya, I would say probably Brais, then Richard Riakpo, then in ranking probably Billum Smith, then Zerdo.
You're putting Billum Smith over.
Oh, I think Zerdo beats Billum Smith, bro. No.
Goulamirian held the WBA title for a while now.
No, do you know what? It is my shot. I've never seen Goulamirian fight, so I can't even judge him.
I mean, he's an Armenian. He's based out of France. The Armenians, I mean, you'll rarely see an Armenian fighter that doesn't bring it. You know, whether that Armenian is based in Australia, like a Vic Darchinian, or I think he was based in Australia, or based in California, or based in Russia, or based in any other place. But
the UK, we've got some based in the UK.
Yeah, but Gula Marian's the title holder there, and you know who's ranked number 1 in the WBA, who hasn't gone anywhere? Dorticos, man, the KO doctor. People have been forgetting about him. He might be the hardest puncher at 200 pounds still.
Didn't he get beat by
he got beat by a couple of people. He got beat by
Usyk and Brady.
Gassiev beat him. But yeah, he's still there. But look, there's a lot of good British cruiserweights there. I think I'd like to see the British guys sort out who's number 1 in the UK, and then get the international people into the discussion. Joe, go.
Richard's number 1. Go on, Joe.
Not to change subjects, but since we got a UK person on the line, because Brais is always Brais comes in here with the pom-poms and the DAZN t-shirt, the DAZN underoos, the DAZN sock hat, and the whole DAZN. He's got the whole DAZN thing, right? When he comes in here.
Matchroom, because he's not Golden Boy, remember?
Here's the thing, Danny. Now, you guys, I think, pay $99 a year for DAZN, the UK guys.
Yeah.
We're paying
£100.
Okay, we're paying
that almost.
We're paying $225
for less content and more.
And you guys didn't have to pay for the pay-per-view with Charlo and Canelo. We did, right?
Free of charge.
So if you're paying what we're paying, and you're not getting the pay-per-views free like you guys are getting, right? Don't we have a right to complain because we're almost paying double what you're paying? It's not even it's not even a comparison. He's telling us that we're paying almost double than what he's paying, and then you have the pay-per-views and all that. And you guys paying almost half of what we pay, and you getting things for free that we got to pay pay-per-view for. We don't have a right to complain, Danny.
You have a right to complain.
I bet you Haney Prograis isn't a pay-per-view out there. I bet you that will not be a pay-per-view on the zone. But
it's free.
It's free. There you go. So they
of course he's gonna love it. I would love the zone too if I was only paying £100.
We had to pay for Spence Crawford though, but it was £20. £20.
All right, try paying $85 for it like we did. And Bates is telling us not to complain. For Christ's sakes, I pay more on boxing than I pay for my car insurance.
Joe,
you guys
invited to the matchroom barbecue if you keep talking like this. So keep quiet, please.
Yeah. Come on, I'm gonna try and get you on there next year. I'm trying to get you in the garden next year, man. But no, Richie Riakpo, I'd say, is probably number 1 because he beat Chris Billam-Smith already, dropped him, beat him on points. He just hasn't had a world title shot.
He's a good fighter. He's good, Richard Riakpo. He's good.
Yeah, he's the best in Britain.
He's going to get better, too.
Getting called out. Apparently, the Spence Crawford was on TNT Sports. Wasn't on the zone.
No, it was on Sky Sports.
Oh, Sky Sports. Okay, well, this Bregin is off on that one. But the point is, it wasn't on the zone. But we're just not getting value for money over here.
Yeah, you're getting bumped because you're saying you're paying what? I see some of your pay-per-views like $90, right? 85. So you're almost paying $85. So for one pay-per-view, you're paying almost what we pay for a whole year's subscription.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And Base is telling us we gotta just shut our mouths and just keep forking out the money and not complain. I love Base, but sometimes, man, he just comes out of left field with some of his stuff, man.
I know he's a bit Matchroom FC, but hey, that's Base. You gotta love him.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go, Danny, because we're gonna bring on Papa Chubby. Thank you so much, Danny. I really appreciate you joining us tonight.
All right,
love
Danny.
It. Take care, guys.
Take care. All right, that was Danny Glover, Fight Fan TV. Check him out. We got Papa Chubby. Hopefully, has sorted out his connection issue. Are you there, Papa Chubby?
You guys got me?
Loud and clear, brother. How's it going?
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone was attached with Bluetooth to something. I didn't realize it.
You don't have to explain it.
Okay.
Go for it.
So.
Oh, he dropped again.
I don't know what happened there. That Papa Chubby, I'll let you back in. I don't know if that was a battery issue this time or what. But let's get to the not second topic, but our second part of the show here, Joe, where we talk about an issue in boxing that didn't happen last night. So we're not going to review a fight right now. But according to my brother Joe Habib, Eddie Hearn says Joshua could return on Ben Eubank undercard in December. But he also mentions that Joshua could even end up fighting Hrgović for the vacant IBF title because the Fury Usyk winner could get stripped if a rematch occurs. What happened to Wilder? So I'm going to flip that question right back to you, Joe. What happened to Wilder? What happened to the talk of AJ facing the Bronze Bomber, the former WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Deontay Wilder? What's happened to that fight? I've got my thoughts on that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts first. Go for it, Joe.
This is what kills me about the, people say that they can't stand liars, right? Like the worst thing a person can do is lie. You hear most people, what do I hate most? A liar. Well, I'm an outlier because you know what I hate more than a liar? A fucking hypocrite. And this guy just no one is more hypocritical than this guy, Eddie Hearn, right? Sits there and says, oh, well, Tyson Fury's never going to fight Usyk. And if he does, they're going to have to drop a boatload of money on the table in order for him to take that fight. And that's the only way the fight happens. Well, lo and behold, a boatload of money was dropped on the table. Lo and behold, we knew that was going to happen. And lo and behold, both you and I knew that fight was going to happen. And we weren't buying the bullshit from all the detractors. But it's crazy because, in this interview, when he was talking about this possible scenario where Joshua could possibly fight Hrgović, right? Instead of Wilder, because it would be for a vacant title. And the guy goes, "What about Wilder?" He goes, "Oh, well, the belt is more than money, right?" Oh, really? Why all of a sudden is the belt more than money? Joshua said he's fighting for money now. He doesn't care about undisputed anymore. He doesn't care about belts anymore. Have you talked to Joshua about that, or is that what you want? Is that what you want? Because you want to continue to keep cashing in on this guy. You don't want the Wilder fight because you know that if Wilder beats him, it's the end of the rainbow. There's no Fury fight after that. There's no IBF vacant title shot at. There's none of that after that, right? So if you are going to have him fight Wilder, it's got to be for Saudi money, right? Because you want to, that's the cash out, right? It can't be for 20 million, 30 million that you'd probably get somewhere else. It's got to be for the 40, 50 million that you want. That's the price, right? To cash out Joshua for Eddie Hearn, in my opinion. So here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. Eddie Hearn, all of a sudden now, is using the legacy argument for Joshua because fighting Hrgović would be an easier fight than fighting Wilder. So we're going to fight for titles and legacy, right, when the fight suits us, but not the tougher fight in Wilder, and more money with Wilder and the tougher fight, right? We'd rather fight Hrgović for 12 million, 15 million instead of fight Wilder for 25, 30 million, right? Because if we fight a couple Hrgovićes a year, we can make the same amount of money by fighting. If we fight two Hrgovićes a year, we can make the same amount of money fighting two Hrgovićes than we can make fighting Wilder, right? And we won't run the risk of getting knocked out. We won't run the risk of losing. We won't run the risk of, after that loss, kind of being done with, right? So if we are going to fight Wilder, we're going to get the amount of money to fight 3 or 4 Hrgovićes, so it'll be worth our while, right? That's the plan, right? The only way we fight Wilder is if someone drops a boatload of money on the table for us, just like someone dropped a boatload of money on the table for Fury. So the same thing you said about Fury fighting Usyk, it's pretty much the same thing that's going on right now with Joshua Wilder. We're only going to fight Wilder if someone fucking backs up a Brinks truck and just empties it out in front of us. That's the only way we fight Wilder.
This whole shit is very hilarious to me because I remember when DAZN got into the picture, with Matchroom, they made the big splash. They were the bank. They were offering all the deals. They were making the big fights that weren't going to be on pay-per-view. Then all of a sudden, flash forward 3 years, and now all of a sudden, DAZN is doing pay-per-view fights, and Matchroom is running around trying to find money from every billionaire sheikh, from Qatar to Oman to Saudi Arabia, to fund fantasy fights. I'm sorry. At this point, this is a fantasy fight. It really bears no real bearing on the heavyweight division. I mean, neither of them are champions, okay? Both of them are past it. AJ definitely is. And having said that, AJ's getting knocked the hell out by Deontay Wilder.
Nobody thinks that AJ is going to beat Wilder. Nobody.
Knocked the hell
Nobody thinks. And Hearn knows that. Hearn knows that too. And he's saying to himself, they're going to have to pay us to get knocked out.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it is. That's what it is. And you know what? Can I just interrupt you? And I apologize. I'm going to make this brief. KSI was palling around with AJ on video. So, there's a relationship, there's a connection there, whatever. So,
and with Ade.
And with Ade. Ryan Garcia tweets out his fight, and KSI had the gall. He had the gall to reply to Ryan Garcia's tweet. Oh, it's not on pay-per-view? And he goes, no, I'm doing it for the fans. And then KSI does a whole bunch of laughing emojis, right? Dude, did you ask your buddy when you and Adi were palling around with your buddy AJ? Did you ask him why his last 2 fights weren't on pay-per-view? Did you ask him why his next fight maybe even on someone's undercard? No, you didn't ask him that stuff, did you? But you're going to take shots at Ryan Garcia, who just made $30 million in one fight, which you'll never touch in your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't know if they were palling around.
Probably kick my ass, KSI, but I'm 54 years old and I got arthritis in every joint in my body. I'm not here to pick a fight with you. Don't get me wrong.
By the way, why is charging pay-per-view money to fans for bad fights something that you're bragging about? Like I said, I don't know if they were palling around in Richmond Park, Regent Park, Hyde Park, or Bushy Park. But at the end of the day, I'll be honest, I don't care right now about KSI's fight. I don't really care that much about Anthony Joshua's next fight. I will obviously watch it and be interested if it does end up being a fight against Wilder, because I know what's going to happen, a brutal knockout. But I don't know. I'm just not all that interested right now in what's going on with AJ in his career. I guess I'll be interested as well if it's a Fury fight down the line at some point. But it is what it is. Let's bring on Lil Penny. Lil Penny, welcome to Ringside Reporter Live. Happy Monday over there in New Zealand. Yes. How's it going? Go for it.
You guys have Columbus Day off tomorrow, Little Penny?
Christopher Columbus?
They got another European that went out sailing and
Cook, James Cook.
James Cook. That's the guy's name. Thank you, James.
Yeah. Hey, Beaves, just on that Hrgovic. Just on that Hrgovic, I reckon AJ should fight Wilder, because if he fights Hrgovic for the IBF title, he'll probably lose that fight, and it's a high risk, low reward type of a fight. Like it's an okay fight, but it's not going to sell like Wilder or AJ. So he might as well just fight Wilder, right? Where there's no title on the line. At least it's a big fight, right? Because if he fights Hrgovic, he loses. He can't fight Wilder next.
I'm not saying you're wrong, Little Penny, but I'm looking through the eyes of their lens. They just saw Hrgovic not look great in his last fight. He didn't look good. He didn't look great against Zhang. They see a guy who's beatable in Hrgovic, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah.
Here's another
beat him?
I think AJ would beat Hrgovic. Yes.
Really? No, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. But even if he doesn't, here comes the kicker. Who promotes Hrgovic?
I don't know who promotes it. Who does?
Eddie Hearn.
Oh, okay. Oh, in-house fights.
There you go. Even if he
But the
does
thing is,
win.
Bibbs, AJ is part of the furniture of Matchroom. Hey,
Listen.
Maestro, you're on mute, dude.
Oh, thank you. I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say like he's the cash cow of the division or blah, 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 the stuff that you used to say. But, you know, but you're not saying those things anymore. I mean, look, AJ couldn't sell out his last arena fight, all right? And they're talking about putting him on an undercard potentially in his next fight. I mean, the business model has become clear. AJ is no longer a sellable commodity against poor opposition. I remember when there were channels out there on YouTube, channels that I know you're familiar with, saying AJ could fight a taxi cab guy and sell out a stadium. Well, that's not the case anymore. So they're going to have to do one of two things. One, they're going to have to realize that these multi-million-dollar, you know, potentially 9-figure fights in the Middle East featuring AJ are no longer on the table, and they're going to have to take on some stiffer opposition. Dare I say guys like Wilder, but you know who I would be itching for AJ to fight if I was managing him? If I was managing Jared Big Baby Anderson, I'd be calling out AJ right now.
Is he off the cycle though?
You just took out one former world champion. Why not take out the former world champion that world champion just beat? So, you know, but I mean, what I mean by that is AJ beat Charles Martin, and he just beat Prince Charles Martin. Why not do that? I mean, there's a lot of guys out, not a lot, but there's a few guys out there that if I were managing, I'd be going for the AJ fight right now. I wasn't impressed with the Helenius performance. His face was bloodied. His face was.
Look, I'm going for Wilder. I think he'll knock him out, but I reckon Wilder's done himself. I think those 3 fights with Fury, I think that took a lot out of him, especially second and the third.
Who do you think's a tougher fight? You think Hrgovic is a tougher fight than Wilder for AJ?
Tougher? Oh, I don't know. Because see, with Wilder can just knock him out like in the first, second, or third round, and that's not a tough fight for me.
Yeah, but Hrgovic doesn't have one-punch knockout power either, man. Like
exactly. That's why I think Hrgovic might be a tougher fight in terms of like he might take a beating. You know what I mean, Beats?
I think he beats Hrgovic, but again, I haven't been impressed with Hrgovic's last couple fights. I just don't think he's looked great.
Well, I haven't been impressed with Wilder either. Like, geez.
No.
But I do, Beeves, to be honest, you know, the rematch with Usyk, I thought he did a little bit better, don't you think? Like he improved a little bit, which is a good sign. It's a good sign, right? Because everyone thought that Usyk was gonna really, you know, make him quit, or like, you know what I mean? Like it was gonna take a. It reminds me of like the Holyfield Lennox Lewis rematch, where Holyfield improved a little bit, but he still lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. Hrgovic could be AJ. I don't know. Like, who knows with AJ? But AJ,
I think he could beat AJ for sure.
Yeah, AJ still fighting the way he's fighting. He could still win decisions. Like he could eke out decisions like fighting the way he's fighting. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think he's got the engine anymore.
Who, AJ?
Yeah.
The problem is that people aren't buying what they're selling anymore. They're not going to be able to sell AJ against lower level opposition and sell out a Wembley Stadium or sell out a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or even sell out the O2. That was proven with the Helenius fight. They're going to have to put AJ in there with a threat. They're going to have to put AJ in there against someone that has a legitimate shot at beating him. And the question to me is whether or not AJ's handlers, that's Matchroom and that's his own management company, 258 Management, are going to be willing to roll the dice. My guess is they're unwilling to roll the dice unless some Saudi, Qatari, or monarch from Oman is willing to put up a 9-figure site fee to put on a big fight. I just don't see it happening, but we'll see what happens. I got to call in Jerry, Lil Penny. So if there's anything else you'd like to say.
No, man. Oh, by the way, the man, that fight with Warrington versus Lee Wood, man, that was sick, dude. Man,
Beautiful fight,
amazing.
wasn't it?
Love it. All right, I'll let Jerry in. See you guys.
All right. Call in.
Thank you, Little Penny.
I believe is area code 410. Area code 410. Jerry, I'm going to give you a call right now. So just hold on there for it. But look, I can see, Joe, why people are a little bit hesitant as it relates to talking that much about the chances that AJ has moving forward. Jerry, are you there? Are a little bit hesitant. Jerry, hello. Well, I heard us being played in the background there, and then I heard him click off. So let's go to the next topic, and then I'll try him again, Joe.
All right.
Please remember that we're not using Blog Talk today.
We're not using Blog Talk
So
today.
when you call in, you're not going to be able to hear anything until we let you into the show. You're not going to have that cue with the Blog Talk music, and you're not going to hear the show in the background. But there we go. So lastly, Joe, Sonny Edwards thinks Bam Rodriguez may pull out of their fight in December. Is he playing mind games, or does he really think it might happen? I have my opinion on this, Joe. I know this is something that caught your eye, or your ear, I should say. What are your thoughts?
I just don't think it's a good look for the fight. This is the biggest fight of your career. You want to make it as big as possible from a financial standpoint, from an public interest standpoint, and putting out in the universe that your opponent's probably not going to be there, or he's probably going to pull out. I just don't think that's a good selling point for the fight. That ain't going to make me get more excited for the fight. That kind of makes me like, wow, what the fuck? Like, is this guy really hoping that his opponent pulls out and he doesn't want to fight him? So even if the argument is he's playing mind games to try to psych Bam out a little bit, it kind of puts a damper on the event. I just don't think it's a good way to promote a fight, in my opinion, if I'm being honest. Now, people are saying Bam looked a little heavy at the press conference. I don't know. People tend to like really grasp at things and reach for straws here. Bam's been doing this a while. He's been going up and down the weight a while. I think once he hits training camp, I think he's going to be fine. And if you're banking on Bam not being at his best, if you're banking on him being out of shape, if you're banking on him not being all there mentally, if you're banking on a worse version of Bam Rodriguez than he's going to bring, you're not preparing for the best version of Bam Rodriguez, then do so at your own peril, Sonny Edwards. I mean, I don't think that's a smart move. I don't think that's good to put out in the universe. And if it is mind games, who are you trying to convince? Who are you trying to convince, us or yourself?
I agree 100% with everything you said, Joe. It's not good business for selling the fight. It's not good if he actually believes this. But as I said to you when we talked about it briefly earlier, I think that Sonny Edwards is just the guy that likes to get into people's heads, that likes to create controversy. He's kind of infamous on Twitter for going back and forth with people. And he probably did notice, like a lot of people noticed, that Bam looked a little heavy in the cheeks, maybe in other parts of his body as well, and that he wanted to point that out. It's interesting to me, though, because Bam, if you remember, was rising the ranks at a lower weight class at 108, and then skipped all the way over to 115, and is now come back down to 112. But it's interesting. A lot of people find Sonny annoying. I see Small Jalapeno saying that over there. And I know that in the UK, he's kind of a hit or miss kind of guy. You either like him or you don't. As they say over there, he's like Marmite. Let's bring in Jerry. Jerry, Mr. Tasker, hopefully you can hear us. You're live on with Maestro and Joe, Ringside Reporter Live. Go for it. Bring in Jerry, Mr. Tasker, hopefully you can hear us. You're live on with Maestro. Sounds like he's listening to us in the background.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, Jerry. Could you just lower the TV in the background, please?
Can't hear you. Hello?
Yeah, hello, Jerry. Jerry, hello.
Yeah.
In the background, please.
1 second. Hello?
Yes, hello, Jerry.
Nah, phone not working.
All right, that's it. Were you able to hear him just now, Jerry?
I could hear him, but I don't know if he couldn't hear us for some reason.
So that's that. We can drop the link one more time, and I'll learn from a couple of things that have happened today in case I am asked to come up out of the bullpen again next time. Hit the link if you'd like to join in.
We'll do some tech checks next time.
Yeah, so there are some people that agree with you, Joe. People are saying Bam looked fat. Papa Chubby's agreeing with what you were saying about it being bad psychological mind games. Who are you favoring at this point in that fight, though? It's not that far away. Who do you like?
I like Bam. I think Bam's a better fighter. I think he's the tougher guy. I think Sonny will try to slow the pace down. He likes to kind of fight at a slow pace. He likes to set traps a lot himself. He likes to fight in spurts, and he goes to the ropes a lot. Bam is a grinder. He's aggressive. He can counterpunch a little bit too, but his greatest strength is he's a grinder. He's a great inside fighter. He's a phenomenal body puncher, and he's going to look to get inside, make it a rough and tumble type fight against Sonny. And I've seen Sonny grab a lot and hold a lot when guys get close to him. The question is, Bam is very good at getting low, right, and slipping up underneath guys who try to contain him. So if Sonny can't freeze that action up close, and he's going to have some problems because he's not going to fight Bam off. He's going to try and freeze the action and look for the ref to help him. And if Bam is breaking free of those clinches and sliding and slipping up underneath those clinches, Bam is a very fluid combination puncher up close. Really is. He can put those shots together. He's got sneaky uppercuts off those body shots as well. So yeah, I like Bam in this fight, and I think he could possibly stop Sonny in the later rounds because I think he'll grind him out of there, wear him down with body shots, catch him up against the ropes, and I could see the ref waving it off because Sonny's going to be trapped up there, and he's not going to be throwing anything back because he's going to be overwhelmed, in my opinion. So
it's definitely that kind of stylistic matchup where you have kind of the pure boxer on one side, and you have the more of a pressure fighter, volume punching guy on the other side. I just find it very interesting that this fight was able to take place. It's one of the good fights that they're giving us towards the end of this year on DAZN, to DAZN's credit. I was kind of critical of DAZN earlier, but this isn't a pay-per-view fight. It's part of the package. May have something to do with the fact that it's a 112-pound fight, and the little guys have always never received the accolades or the attention of the bigger weight divisions. But the reason I'm intrigued by the fight, Joe, myself, because I keep going back and forth on it. When it was first announced, I thought, honestly, I thought Sonny Edwards. Then I started to think about it. I was like, well, Edwards really hasn't faced anybody quite at the level of Jesse Rodriguez yet, with all due respect to the guys that he's been facing. So it's gonna be a good fight for sure. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna save my pick though for a little. I need to think about this one.
Are you on the fence right now?
I'm kind of on the fence about it.
It's a tough one. It's a close fight. It's a 50-50 fight. I always like Bam. I always like Bam in the fight though.
Yeah, which is why it's a great contest. Joe, anything else you'd like to touch upon before we end the show?
What do we got next week? We got Mendoza versus Tszyu.
Oh, right. We got the Mendoza versus Tszyu fight, and obviously there's the KSI versus whatever the hell. So let's talk about Mendoza and Tszyu. That was up there. Mendoza, for those you don't know, won the WBC interim title at 154 pounds when he knocked out the towering Inferno Sebastian Fundora. The fight before that, he had actually won an important fight in Minnesota against Banana Rosario, stopping him to earn that shot. He was stripped of his WBC interim title when he agreed to take on now elevated Tszyu for the WBO title at 154. In fact, I think when they stripped him, he was still interim as well in Tszyu. You guys might have remembered that a couple weeks ago on the Canelo undercard, his now vacated interim title was won by Erickson Lubin, who controversially defeated name is escaping me right now.
Ramos.
Jesus Ramos, thank you. In a fight that I thought Jesus Ramos won.
Right.
So look, we have a guy in Tszyu who was hoping to get a Charlo shot against the guy in Mendoza who was also hoping to get a Charlo shot. But I do think that Tszyu is going to win this fight, Joe. I'm looking forward to this fight. I know Mendoza is going to bring it. He's that kind of a fighter. He's going to try to apply pressure. But Tszyu has a really good jab, and he really sets up his backhand punch with a strong jab. He's good at managing distance as well with his feet. And I just think that he's just coming of age right now in this division. I mean, he seems to be getting better with each and every fight. And I think he's going to be a little bit too much for Brian Mendoza. I think that what he's really good at, whereas Brian Mendoza is kind of good at a bunch of different things, but it's not going to be enough to counter that jab that Tszyu has, that distance range that Tszyu has, and of course those power punches. Joe, go for it.
I was listening to Tony Harrison. He was being interviewed on Pro Box TV. Shout out to Pro Box TV. Paulie, I think it was I know Chris Algieri was on the panel and some other guy was on there, and they were talking about that fight when Tim Harrison had that fight with Tszyu, and he said that going into that fight, all I was preparing for was his power, because everyone said how hard he hit, right? But what really surprised me wasn't the power, it was the speed, because I didn't see the shots coming. I couldn't prepare for the shots coming. And sometimes when you look at somebody, right, when you think, is this guy fast? There's a difference, I think, between being fast and being quick. Tszyu is fast. Maybe he's quick, but he's more so fast. So what's the difference, B? I think when you're fast, you're more efficient at what you do. So you find ways to abbreviate the movement, and you're not wasting motion while doing it. And Tszyu is one of the most efficient fighters I've ever seen. He doesn't, waste his punches. He doesn't load up. So when I say he's efficient, he knows just how, he knows just how to gauge the distance, and he'll just shoot that shot from the elbow.
He doesn't bounce around unnecessarily.
Yeah, there you go. Not a lot of wasted motion. So some guys, when they throw the right hand, they'll torque it a little bit, right? Tszyu, just like his dad would do the same thing. They would throw the shot right from the elbow. It was almost like a Wing Chun punch the way they threw it. Just like, so he's so efficient at just threading the needle, placing his punches perfectly, and not telegraphing. So because he throws those shots so tight, so crisp, and he knows the right punch to throw at the right time, he's just a very, very crafty guy in there. And another one of those guys who's versatile. He's a guy who can hold his own from the distance. He can fight up pretty decent on the inside, but his money game is the mid-range, right? And in this fight, right, I think he can, he's going to be very effective in the mid-range. I think he'll eat Mendoza alive up in the mid-range. And Tszyu fights you and he pushes you back because he's very heavy-handed. I mean, Tony Harrison could say what he wants. It was the speed. But again, when he made contact with you, your whole body moved across that ring when he hit you. Like he had you like close to that corner and he hit you, like he elevated you further into that corner with the shots. Like he's a strong guy, bro. He's
Very
a strong guy.
And what I would say
No.
about that too, Joe, is that I'd invite people ahead of this fight to go back and watch the fight with Jesus Ramos Jr., right? Because I personally believe that Tszyu's a sharper puncher than Jesus Ramos Jr., that he manages distance better than Jesus Ramos Jr., that as Joe was saying, he has that fast release, especially of his power punch, that I think is much faster than Jesus Ramos Jr. And unlike Jesus Ramos Jr., Tszyu actually appears to get better and better and better round after round. Whereas we saw in a fight that I felt Jesus Ramos Jr. won against Lubin, he kind of faded towards the end.
Yeah.
We don't see that with Tszyu fights.
No, steady.
In fact,
He's consistent.
Tszyu
He's consistent.
Well, in fact, the knock on Tszyu a couple fights ago, or 2 or 3 fights ago, was that he was too much of a slow starter and took a little too long to get started. What I see, though, is a guy who reads his opponents, a guy who figures out the openings, and a guy who, again, manages that distance so well. He transitions from long range to mid range very, very well. I'm not saying he's a 5-star inside fighter, because he's not. But
he's capable.
But he's capable on the inside. And what he's really good at doing on the inside is
pushing you back
and being the physically stronger guy.
Makes you uncomfortable. Breaks your rhythm. Breaks your rhythm.
He can kind of apply that kind of Greco-Roman grappling on the inside, where he can hold you, maneuver you around, turn you around, and then rip you with shots, and then kind of
release the clinch and then punch off
the mid-range, and then make you pay in that mid-range. He also does it too when he's got guys against the ropes. He'll like smother you a little bit, then he'll step back, and then he'll
push off you. He'll push off you.
Yeah. So I see this as a solid fight. Obviously, we're talking about two guys who only a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago were both interim champions. Both vying for a spot as the full-fledged champion. They didn't get it. Now they're fighting each other. And Tszyu is going to make a strong case for himself in terms of why he's a better fighter at 154 than Jermell Charlo. That's what I think. That's what I think, Joe. Go for it.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Because Jermell Charlo said, I'm coming back down to 154, is that why Mauricio Suleiman took away his interim status of being the WBC champion at 154 to Brian Mendoza?
It's a very weird thing, the way the WBC is moving.
They're the worst, bro. They are so bad, bro.
It's like this: you have an interim champion. That literally means that if the guy's not active in the division, he should be the champion. Well, you make this guy interim champion. Your full champion moves up 2 weight divisions and essentially abandons the division. I don't know. To me, that would require that the WBC upgrade their interim champion to full champion. Otherwise, why else is there an interim champion other than maybe collecting sanctioning fees?
But not only that, if Jermell Charlo stays true to form, guy just made a big payday, right? Just got the bag. He'll probably take another year off again. Like what these PBC fighters are incentivized to fight once a year because they get the bag and then they just go on vacation for a year and a half. What if Crawford doesn't want to fight him? Like what are they gonna like? What is next for him? Right?
Well, Crawford's route at 154 is probably gonna go through Tszyu. I think he's pretty much alluded to that without alluding to it. And I'll break it down. So remember, right after the fight with Canelo, Crawford says, listen, you're not even on my radar right now. Like, I'm not going to fight you. You didn't do what you're supposed to do in the ring against Canelo, et cetera, et cetera. I'm paraphrasing here. But you'll all remember, guys, that the WBO has that super champion designation, right? And if you're the super champion in one division, you become the automatic mandatory challenger for the championship in the division above. I don't know if it's ever happened below. Maybe it applies for that too, but definitely the division above. And who's that now? Tszyu. The WBO just upgraded Tszyu. So if Tszyu wins this fight against Brian Mendoza, which I think he will, Joe,
I think he will too.
and Charlo decides to move up, Crawford decides to move up in weight, it won't be Charlo, it will likely be Tszyu, because Charlo doesn't have the belt at 154 anymore.
I don't know if the WBC stripped him yet. He doesn't have the WBO. You're correct. He doesn't have the WBO.
No, he still has the WBC because they renamed the new interim, which I guess kind of resets that phase where he gets to like not defend his title for a while. Because I guess once a guy's named interim, like the full champion has a full year to fight him, right? Well, they just made him interim. So I guess the year resets.
So do you think he goes back down and defends his titles, or what do you think Jamel does? I think he's going to go on vacation again, like he did before.
If I was Jamel Charlo, I would not try to take on Tszyu because I think Tszyu beats him. I would try to take on one of these weak champions at 160 pounds.
Yeah,
I mean, you just went all the way up to 168. It's going to be very difficult to go all the way down to 147. But you also just fought arguably the toughest puncher, biggest puncher, most powerful puncher at 168. Yeah. So you should feel comfortable facing the punching power of the current champions at 160. I know Top Rank has that unification fight coming up between the IBF champ and the WBO champ at 160. And of course, you know, the other champion there is his brother, but I mean, his brother hasn't fought in I don't know how long, and Adames is there as interim champion. I'm sure he could get that fight. I think the division for Charlo's 160. I think those fights are more winnable for him than getting his body all the way back down to 154 and taking on Tszyu. I know which way I would go if I was managing him for sure.
Yeah, Team Batman seems to think that Charlo beats everyone Crawford did. Yeah, but Charlo lost to Tony Harrison
and Brian Mendoza.
And he lost to
the first time. I know it was a draw, but I had
Mendoza. What's the other guy's name he fought for the WBO when he won the WBO title? Who's the guy he fought for the draw?
I just said it. The Argentinian Brian Castaño.
Castaño, yeah. You said Mendoza.
Oh, sorry,
so I thought Castaño. I thought Castaño beat him the first time.
So did I.
I thought Harrison beat him the first time.
So did I.
I also think that he was losing to Harrison the second time, right? So, I mean, we could play combat math all you want, but he needed 2 times to beat Harrison, and he needed 2 times to beat Castaño. Now, if you think Harrison and Castaño are better than Crawford, then I don't know what to tell you. But if Harrison can beat him, and Castaño, I thought, beat him the second time, if those guys can beat him, then, you know. But Crawford's a better fighter than Charlo, and again, if he was to fight Charlo, I think he would knock him out.
I mean, look, at this stage in the game, you know, I have a lot of respect for Erislandy Lara, but what is he?
I just think he would knock him out.
What is he, 43 right now?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm Charlo, I'm targeting that title. I'm targeting Carlos Adames. I'm targeting the winner of Galtieri and Janibek, Alim Kanulai.
I mean,
you know, those
are people still
for me than 154 against Tszyu.
Are people still going to play the resume game with Crawford? Are we really going to do that? Like after he just destroyed Errol Spence, are we really going to play the resume game with Crawford still? I mean, the guy's knocked out. We got 9 knockouts in a row. We're going to play. We're still going to do this resume.
We're at about 11 or 12 at least.
I mean, are we still doing that, bro? Really? Wow. Are we going back to Gamboa now too? Why? Like, how many years ago was that? That's kind of weird, man.
At 135.
Is this a real good faith discussion, or are we just talking for the sake of talking here?
Well,
are you really
hear from Team Batman if he wants to join us? Team Batman, I dropped the link. You can join us live if you'd like.
So you really think Charlo can beat Terrence Crawford? You're really going to sit there and say that? You really think Charlo's a better fighter than Terrence Crawford? I don't know. Hey, you have a right to your opinion, But we
obviously he destroyed a guy a car crash destroyed earlier.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Yeah, but that guy destroyed Danny Garcia after the car crash, and not destroyed, but beat Danny Garcia and destroyed Ugas. Literally destroyed Ugas after the car crash.
I mean, Castaño beat Charlo the first time. Tony Harrison beat him the first time.
But
I don't think.
I mean, he's been wobbled as well. We've all seen Charlo wobbled.
Charlo's like, people get wobbled, people get hurt. You got to win fight. You have to win 7 rounds. It's not a game of who wobbles. We score fights, and who wins more rounds or who knocks the guy out. Crawford's definitely a harder puncher than Charlo. He's got more knockouts, right? I don't even think you can compare the two.
Then he wants a round 2. Let's give.
Does anyone think
a round 2, Joe?
Does anyone think Ugas was a Tank Davis opponent?
I don't know what that means.
What does that mean?
Danny, join us in for round 2. We're back.
Are we still gonna play this resume game with Terrence Crawford? Danny, what are we doing here, bro?
No, this puppy Charlo guy needs to lay off the whiskey, man. The bourbon whiskey getting to him because it's all bad faith. I don't know what he's talking. I don't even think he watches boxing. If he thinks Ugas is a former Tank Davis opponent, it's just all silly. Charlo does.
Barrios didn't KO Ugas, bro. The fight went the distance, bro.
Yeah, this guy needs to lay off the bourbon whiskey, man.
Now almost. I almost hit the lottery. Let me go cash my tickets. What do we do? All right, I gotta stop talking. This ain't a good faith discussion anymore. This isn't even a good faith discussion.
It's stupid. Charlo does not beat Terrence Crawford.
Let me ask you, Danny, before.
This is embarrassing, bro. This is embarrassing.
Let me ask you, Danny, before we shut down over here.
Wow, this is
in terms of Charlo. I mean, again, if we're doing Danny Glover management here, right? Is he going back to 154 to fight Tszyu, or are we going to 160?
160 to fight Lara or Gutierrez, but I believe that Errol Spence or Chris Eubank Jr. will get to Lara first because a champion always goes for the highest bidder. And Lara, at 43 years old, he needs a cash out, and it's more lucrative to fight someone like Errol Spence or Chris Eubank Jr. over in England. So Charlo's, because of his bad performance, it doesn't sell well. And Lara's not a seller in himself, Cubans don't tend to sell well because, they've got to leave their whole country. So they don't really have a good ticket base, unfortunately. So you're going to go to a high. Errol Spence still has, the Errol sexuals and, the big Errol Spence.
Now it seems like we got these, we got these Charlo sexuals now.
Yeah.
You're gonna cape for Charlo after what he just did in this last performance against, this is sad, bro.
Yeah, this must be a Texas thing or something. I don't know what's going on there.
There's plenty of AJ sexuals in the UK. Stop it.
Yeah, there's them too. And Furyites. There's a lot of there's a lot of funny stuff. But I think Errol Spence will get the Lara fight if he goes to 160, and he'll beat Lara, and I think he'll probably beat Gutierrez as well. So I think his best Errol skips 154 or Chris Eubank Jr. because he's due to win a world title. So I'm sure he can get the funding to get old Lara boy in the ring rather than go for.
It's funny because
he called out Triple G, but Triple G has no belt, so I don't know what Eubank was talking about.
I don't know if you saw the interview with Billy Joe with Simon Jordan. I actually thought it was pretty entertaining and insightful.
That was a good interview.
He doesn't think Eubank Jr. is ever going to win a world championship. He said he'd bet anybody any amount of money on that. You think Chris Eubank Jr. has it within him to win a world title? I mean, his next fight is supposed to be against a guy who looked like almost, dare I say, like a dwarf in there at 154. He looked like he was auditioning for Snow White in the Seven Dwarfs. I'm talking about Conor Benn.
I would bet everything I own. I would take everything out of my bank account. I would take everything out of the stock market. I would take the flesh off my body and bet it if I could that Charlo cannot beat Crawford. I would just do that. And if anyone thinks that Charlo can beat Terrence Crawford, then
I know a guy who thinks that. We're going to bring him on next. Danny, last words. Thank you for joining us. A second.
So about Billy Joe, well, Billy Joe obviously didn't see or know that how old Erislandy Lara is, because Eubank Jr., I would bet big money that Eubank Jr. can beat Erislandy Lara and be a world champion.
160 is such a weak division, Billy Joe. Do you really want to say he'll never be champion?
Yeah, and even if Billy Joe comes back at 168 and Eubank goes back up to 168, Eubank will beat Billy Joe now. So Billy just got that hate for him, but that's an old rivalry. But yeah, Eubank, if he gets or Errol gets Lara's the target guy. He's the easy pickings right now. So yeah, that's all right.
The thing with Lara is that he was upgraded from regular status to full status when Triple G dropped his belt. So
Team Batman just said that Charlo would beat everyone Crawford faced. I don't think he would beat Sean Porter, and I don't think he would beat Errol Spence.
No,
that's just I don't think he'd beat either one of those guys. If he lost to Tony Harrison, you think he's going to beat Errol Spence? No way.
And Terrence Crawford even knows, because he even said about it. He said, "I know that Errol punches you up in sparring, so it's a known fact that Errol dominates."
He's not beating Errol Spence, bro. And even still, doesn't matter. Will he beat Terrence Crawford? Are you gonna sit here and say that he can beat Terrence Crawford?
No,
I can't. All right, I'm gonna let you go. We're gonna bring in Penny one last time. Thank you, Danny. Everybody check out Danny's channel, by the way. Just click his name in the chat or copy and paste. It will take you right there. He's got a good channel himself. Lil Penny believes that Charlo can beat Crawford. He says he can do it at 160. Lil Penny, the floor is yours. Go for it.
Okay, I do think that Bud will annihilate Charlo at 154, because I don't think he can make the weight anymore, right? Or maybe he can, but he'll be like a Roy Jones type of how he went up from heavyweight to light heavyweight. But at 160, I think Jamel can beat him, because size does matter, right? You don't think so, Beebs? At 160? That's big for Crawford's a bona fide welterweight, Beebs.
He could, you know what he could do? He could take like an anvil and 10 rolls of quarters and put them in his trunks, and he could weigh 200 pounds and he still wouldn't be able to beat Terrence Crawford.
Because Beebs, what I'm saying is, I remember when Pac fought Margarito, right? But that was at 150, right? And Margarito was weight drained, right? Let's be honest, he was, right? Because he was really.
How much did he weigh the night of the fight, though, man?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Margarito weighed like, I don't know, God knows what he weighed, right? Because there's no rehydration clause. But remember, Margarito, he made a body shot, right, to Pac, and it nearly knocked him down, and to the point where Pac was running away. I think it was like on the 7th round or something like that. Now, if that was at the full 154, where Margarito had an extra 4 pounds, I reckon Pac would have gone down. That 4 pounds that Margarito couldn't get, that makes a big difference, right? Now I'm saying, I don't know. Look, Manny may have gotten up and continued, but what I'm saying with Charlo is a way better fighter than Margarito, right? And Bud is like, Manny's probably better than.
We're doing gymnastics here to try to make an argument for Charlo. He's not a better fighter. Terrence Crawford is a 10 times better fighter than Jamal Charlo.
Jamal Charlo, 100%.
But Biggs, do you reckon that Jamal can connect on Bud at 160? He'll connect, though, right?
He connected against Tony Harrison the first fight, and he lost the decision.
He connected against Canelo.
He connected against Castano, and I thought he lost that fight.
You know, Jermel's punching resistance at 160 will be really good because he's got the extra weight.
Yeah, it might be good, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who can switch hit, a guy.
What's he gonna do? He's gonna be a punching bag for Crawford.
A guy who could grapple with the best of them on the inside.
Jamal's not Brandon Rios, Beebs. Come on now.
So you're saying he could take the punch? So like, is that the strategy? I'm going to take the punch.
But he's gonna punch back though, Beebs. Like, because he's a smaller. His opponent.
So he
is a
can.
smaller
So
guy.
you're saying he could take one to give two to Crawford? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
No.
Does he beat Tszyu at 154?
No, not at 154. I don't think that 154 was a bad weight for him. Like, because he's going down from 168 to 154. That's dangerous, man. That's too dangerous. Like, he shouldn't do it, but he probably will. He said he's going back to 154.
Yeah, because I think the reason he wants to go back to 154 though is for a Crawford fight.
But by the way, Maestro, can I bring up some really sensitive issue?
I don't know about that. This ain't my channel. This is Joe's channel. So
Is it politics?
Yes. But it's
Go ahead,
related
Adam.
to boxing, though.
Go ahead. I don't care.
go for it.
Okay, right. This fight with Usyk and Fury will be in Saudi Arabia, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Don't count that will, even if they sign the contract, don't count that by being made, because at the moment, Palestine and Israel are going through a war at the moment. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
I
nothing
don't
to do-
know
it
if
has
you
nothing-
noticed, but this isn't something that just started when the Palestine.
It has nothing to do with this. It has
This
I don't know,
zero to
man.
do
going on
with
since
I
the
hope not.
1940s. This has been going on since the 1940s. Lil.
Yeah, but it's pretty serious right at the moment. They're
No,
like,
it's not. It's not going to affect the fight.
okay, oh, I hope not. I hope not.
No, it's not.
I bet everything I own, and I bet the flesh
And
on my
by the
body.
way, that's
won't
got
affect the
nothing to
fight.
do with Saudi
It
Arabia.
has nothing to do with Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia
me-
has never supported really in any tangible sense the Palestinian people.
So Terrence Crawford has 31 knockouts.
Yeah.
Jermell Charlo has 19 knockouts. Who's the bigger
but-
puncher?
Yeah, but Bibbs, Jermell changed his style once he.
Oh, Mike, we are really reaching here.
No, because
Yeah.
Bibbs, if you saw on 24/7, oh, not 24/7, All Access, the first episode, he did say that he changed his style. He now started to plant his feet with is it Derek James? I can't remember his name. Yeah, where he changed his style a little bit. Like,
Do you honestly think? First of all, Terrence Crawford deadlifts 500 pounds. He walks around at about probably the same weight Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo walks around at about 170. This guy walks around at like 168.
He's got a Greco-Roman wrestling background.
He's a wrestler. He's a wrestler.
So well on the inside. It's from a standing position.
First of all, Terrence Crawford is faster than him. I think he's stronger than him.
Can I say smarter than him?
He hits harder than him.
He's got a better boxing IQ.
There's not one advantage, and he's got longer arms than him too. He's got really long arms.
I think
Penny, hold on. Team Batman says in response to that, Joe, look at Jermell's KO ratio in his last 10 fights, which is about 8 years in PBC land. He also says, all that sounds good, doesn't change my opinion.
I think he's got no chance at 154. Right? We all know that.
He's got no chance at any weight. He will never beat Terrence.
160, I'll give him a chance. 160, I'll give him a chance. He's a good fighter. He's undisputed at 154. It's like, come on,
okay.
man.
You said good. You said good. You said good, right? He's a good fighter. I agree. But guess what? Terrence Crawford is a great fighter.
That's why I'm saying he's got no chance at 154.
He's an all-time great going up against the good.
I agree.
Once again, you have the car, good car. Then you have the other car that's fully loaded, every options. You know, this car fucking has so many options, it'll give you a blowjob. This car is fully loaded.
So Beebs, all right, I'll go to another topic. So you reckon Bud Crawford will beat Triple G at 160?
Yeah. I would pick him.
I don't know, man. Triple G is washed up. Come
on, Triple G is 41 years old now, man.
Yeah, he is washed up.
I mean,
I would pick him against Triple G.
So
but not in his prime, though. Not in his prime.
Penny, we got to keep it.
It would be tough. It would be tough.
Penny, we got to keep it moving. So, any last thoughts? Go for it.
Nah, man, I got no last thoughts.
All right. Well, we'll connect again. Brother. Thank you so much for joining.
All right.
Hey, so
I respect his opinion. I just disagree with it, man.
Lil Pennies or Team Batman?
I disagree with Little Penny's opinion. Team Batman's, I just can't stop laughing at the things he's saying in the chat.
There you
Yes,
go.
I would. Yes, I would pick Crawford over Munguia at 160 pounds. I would. Yes. Derevyanchenko, I thought went life and death with Munguia.
I saw Derevyanchenko the other day at Cops and Kids. The guy's still training, looking for a fight.
Yeah.
So
would I pick Crawford over Munguia? Yes. Would I pick Munguia over Charlo? Yes. I think Crawford could beat Munguia. I don't think Charlo would. Charlo didn't want to fight him.
No, I don't think Charlo beats Munguia either, honestly.
I don't think Charlo beats Munguia.
Charlo, by the way. Either Charlo. So, Joe, that was it. Great show. We look forward to seeing you back with your regular host next week, Mr. Eric Lorda. It was a pleasure to fill in for Eric. Big shoes to fill. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you check that notification bell to make sure that you know every time Joe goes live, because Joe doesn't only go live on Sundays. There will be days when Joe just says, you know what? This is very interesting. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to speak to the boxing community about it. And you don't want to miss those streams either. And lastly, consider joining a membership on the channel. Memberships help content creators like Ringside Reporter, Mr. Joe Habib. They help me as well. They help keep the channel going. They help cover the expenses. But that will be it. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a great rest of your Monday if you're out there in the Far East. On behalf of me and Mr. Joe Habib, we'll see you next time.